Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is probably the most ambitious title that Monolith Soft has ever created. It's larger, bigger, more cinematic, more heartbreaking, more drama, more trauma than just about any other Xenoblade Chronicles before it. And that is why I love this game so much. I love this game to a passion. I never felt so invested in a game in my life more so than I do with Xenoblade Chronicles 3. But does the story hold up to Xenoblade Chronicles 1, X, and 2? Does the combat hold up? And does the Switch hold a steady frame rate and resolution? I'm going to talk about this all as in-depth as I can in my Xenoblade Chronicles 3 review. So let's get with it. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is by far the saddest Xenoblade Chronicles game I have ever played in my life. I mean, it's so bleak, so grim, so sad, but it's such a fantastic and wonderful story. The story of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is a story of two major nations at a constant non-stop war. This endless battles and the trauma that your main three protagonists go through is just a sad story. It's very sad, but at the same time, it doesn't shy away. It doesn't shy away from the horrors of war. Your three main characters, Noah, Uni, and Lance, they're kids essentially. They're kids and they're fighting this battle and they're traumatized and they're sad and they're tired, but at the same time it's their duty as soldiers and they just live on to fight, and it's such a beautiful, bleak and sad story. Moving forward into the game, around I would say an hour or 2 hours into it, you get charged into a secret undercover mission, and this is where the story of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 really pick up, where you come across the three more protagonists, because there's a total of 6 characters in this game that you actually play with, and the other 3 are from the enemy nations. Is the enemy nations of Aegis, and you're in this climactic battle with them because obviously you're opposing, you are fighting the opposing nations, but we get a stalemate because the real villain of Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Mobius, enters the battle, and of course you get this 60-year-old man who unlocks this chrysalis egg, and your 6 characters gain the ability to interlink, and Noah and Miu become Ouroboros, this crazy creature with this immense power, and you fight Mobius, and you basically defeat him. Even though he isn't dead, you just defeat him, he goes away, and that's where the story begins, essentially, as Xenoblade Chronicles 3. It's a sad story, but it's a heartbreaking story. Noah and Miu are probably my favorite characters, and it's the characters that I love playing because of their purpose. They are overseers, and their jobs essentially in this war is to give the fallen soldiers a proper send-off to the afterlife. These child soldiers, they're born and bred for battle. They usually start by the age of 10 to go into war, and their service is for 10 terms, or in our time, 10 years. And many of them don't even survive the 10 terms. A lot of them die in the battlefield, which makes the heartbreak so much more worse, because you get emotionally invested in these characters and you see their trauma and you see their pain. but at the same time, you just wish that they will get the moment of peace that they unjustly deserve, because they were born into this everlasting conflict that they didn't even choose to be a part of. And if the soldiers survive the 10 terms, they get the greatest of honor, which is called the homecoming, and the queen herself basically turns them into pure ether or pure essence, and they, I guess, live in the afterlife, a part of the flaming core or something. I kind of don't even realize, because it's so emotional. But yeah, the story of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is probably what propels this game, and probably why I'm so invested in it. Now, the exploration and gameplay in Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is pretty much not so different from the other titles. I mean, it's a combination of Monolith Soft's time with this franchise. You are getting a more open world experience that lets you traverse this warring nations, this world, in a very unique way that's not seen in Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2. It actually reminds me a lot of the exploration of Xenoblade Chronicles X. It really does. While Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2 is a little bit more linear, Xenoblade Chronicles X and Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is a lot more open world to let you explore. And as overseers, you can actually explore the world, and if you see fallen soldiers, you could actually do your overseer duty and give them a proper send-off to the afterlife, which will give you credits and affinity towards the nations. And there's also side quests and side missions that are probably just as important as your main priority mission. This is the first game I had played where side missions are actually just as important as the primary mission, if not so more so, because these side missions actually have a purpose and they actually propel some of the character story that's very vital in Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Once again, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is a very character and story driven game, and each side quest that you do hammers that down, and it feels important and doesn't feel like a side quest or a side mission. It feels like a part of the game, a part of your duty as soldiers. Now, performance on Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is actually not that bad. Obviously, due to the Switch's hardware, there has to be cutbacks, and there are cutbacks in this game in terms of like screen space ambient occlusion and other post-processing effects to that nature. But performance is actually quite stable. It's a quite stable 30 FPS. I know in Digital Foundry's review, he did see some dips into the high 20s, 28, 29 FPS. I did see those dips. Sadly, I couldn't record them, but there are dips. But more so, this game is a pretty stable 30 FPS. Is there dynamic resolution in play? I am not sure. From my accounts, it's 720p resolution docked, but I'm not excluding the fact that there is dynamic resolution, just for the fact that Xenoblade Chronicles 2 also had dynamic resolution scaling in place. And given the scope of this game and the size of this game, I am not drawing that out. I'm pretty sure there is dynamic resolution in place to maintain that 30 FPS target. But at the same time, depending on your type of gameplay, you might not see the drop in frame rates as much as others. I tried my best to force a frame rate drop, and it's very, very difficult. This game is just very steady at 30 FPS, and it's a very welcome take. My preliminary gameplay experience with Xenoblade Chronicles 3 it's just a fantastic game. So far I'm loving this game. It's fantastic, and I really hope people get to play. This game is one of the first games that I truly have such a meaningful, deep connection to, and it's very heartbreaking, it's very sad, it's very traumatized, but it keeps me invested because I want these characters to have a very good ending, and I want them to succeed in their quest of bringing peace because of their personal trauma and their personal grief. As always, guys, if you like this video, please leave a comment below, like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned. I am hopefully going to do more reviews of some of my favorite video games. And as always, guys, have an awesome day.